Sniffing and scratching among the leaves at the foot of the tree was a squirrel. Willie recognised its shape from pictures he'd seen, but he wasn't prepared for one that moved. He froze, terrified. The squirrel seemed quite unperturbed and went on scuffling about in the leaves, picking up nuts and titbits in its tiny paws. Willie stayed motionless, hardly breathing. The squirrel's black eyes darted in a lively manner from place to place. It was tiny, light grey in colour, with a bushy tail that stuck wildly in the air as it poked its paws and head into the russet and gold leaves. After a while, Willie's shoulders relaxed. He wriggled his toes gingerly inside his sneakers. It seemed as though he'd been crouching for hours, although it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. The little grey fellow didn't seem to scare him as much, and he began to enjoy watching the squirrel. A loud sharp barking suddenly disturbed the silence. The squirrel leaped and disappeared. Willie sprang to his feet, hopping on one leg and gasping at the mixture of numbness and pins and needles in the other. A small black and white collie ran around the tree and into the leaves. It stopped in front of him and jumped up into the air. Willie was more petrified of the dog than he had been of the squirrel. "Them poisonous dogs," he heard his mother's voice saying inside him. "One bite from them mutts and you're dead. They got horrible disease in them." He remembered the tiny children's graves and quickly picked up a thick branch from the ground. "You go away," he said feebly, gripping it firmly in his hand. "You go away." The dog sprang into the air again and barked and yapped at him, tossing leaves by his legs. Willie let out a shriek and drew back. The dog came nearer. "I'll kill you." "I wouldn't do that," said a deep voice behind him. He turned to find Tom standing by the outer branches. "He ain't going to do you no harm, so I should just drop that if I was you." Willie froze with the branch still held high in his hand. Sweat broke out under his armpits and across his forehead. Now he was in for it. He was bound to get a beating now. Tom came towards him, took the branch firmly from his hand and lifted it up. Willie automatically flung his arm across his face and gave a cry. But the blow he was expecting never came. Tom had merely thrown the branch to the other end of the graveyard, and the dog had gone dashing after it. "You can take your arm now, down boy," he said quietly. "I think you and I'd better go inside and sort a few things out. Come on." And with that, he stepped aside for Willie to go in front of him along the path. Willie walked shakily towards the cottage, his head lowered. Through blurred eyes, he saw the tufts of grass spilling up between the small flat stones. The sweat trickled down the sides of his face and chest. His armpits stung savagely, and a sharp pain stabbed at his stomach. He went through the front door and stood in the hallway, feeling the perspiration turn cold and clammy. Tom walked into the front room and stood waiting for him to enter. "Don't dither out there," he said. "Come on in." Willie did so, but his body felt as if it no longer belonged to him. It seemed to move of its own accord. Tom's voice grew more distant. It reverberated as if it was being thrown back at him from the walls of a cave. He sat down on the stool, feeling numb. Tom picked up a poker and walked across to the fire. "Now I'm going to get it," Willie thought, and he clutched the seat of the stool tightly. Tom looked down at him. "About Sammy," Willie heard him say. He watched him poke the fire, and then he didn't hear any more. He knew that Tom was speaking to him, but he couldn't take his eyes off the poker. It sent the hot coke tumbling in all directions. He saw Tom's brown wrinkled hand lifted out of the fire. The tip was red, almost white in places. He was certain that he was going to be branded with it. The room seemed to swim, and he heard Tom's voice echoing. He watched the tip of the poker spin and come closer to him, and then the floor came towards him and it went dark. He felt two large hands grip him from behind and push his head in between his knees until the carpet came into focus. And he heard himself gasping. Tom opened the front window and lifted him out through it. "Breathe in deep," Willie heard him say. "Take in a good sniff." He took in a gulp of air. "I'll be sick," he mumbled. "That's right, go on, I'm holding you. Take in a good sniff, let your throat open." Willie drank in some more air. A wave of nausea swept through him and he vomited. "Go on," he heard Tom say. "Breathe in some more." And he was sick again and again until there was no more left inside him, and he hung limply in Tom's arms. Tom wiped his mouth and face with the scarf. The pain in Willie's stomach had gone, but he felt drained, like a rag doll. Tom lifted him back into the cottage and placed him in his armchair. His small body sank comfortably into the old, soft expanse of chair. His feet barely reached the edge of the seat. Tom tucked a blanket around him, drew up a chair by the fire and watched Willie fall asleep. The tales he'd heard about evacuees didn't seem to fit Willie. Ungrateful and wild were the adjectives he'd heard used, or just plain homesick. He was quite unprepared for this timid, sickly little specimen. He looked at the poker leaning against the stove. He never thought. No, surely not, he murmured. Oh, Thomas Oakley, where have you landed yourself? There was a sound of scratching at the front door. More trouble, he muttered. He crept quietly out through the hallway and opened the door. Sammy bounded in and jumped around his legs, panting and yelping. Now you just shut that old mouth, Tom whispered firmly. There's someone asleep. He knelt down and Sammy leapt into his arms, lathering his face with his tongue. I don't need to have a bath when you're around, do I? Sammy continued to lick him until he was satisfied just to pant and allow his tail to flop from side to side. Tom lifted him up and carried him into the front room. As soon as the dog saw Willie asleep in the chair, he began barking again. Tom put his finger firmly on his nose and looked directly into his eyes. And I'm going to stop there. So, goodbye, and I shall see you all tomorrow. Bye.